how delicious the recipe sounds, if you don't prepare and choose your pans appropriately, the dessert won't work out. One of the key things to note when you're reading a recipe is whether or not it says to grease the pan or not. If it doesn't, just let it go. Or if it says just to grease the bottom, you just want to get around the edges. That's really important for things like brownies that need to have an ungreased side so that the batter can cling and rise appropriately. Now, you've got a few options when it comes to greasing the pan as well. You can either use a non-stick cooking spray, which we really recommend because it's easy to get a nice thin coat and it doesn't add a lot of calories and doesn't brown too much. Or you can use unsalted butter that you could either melt and brush on with a brush or put on with a bit of paper towel just evenly over the bottom and sides of the pan as instructed. The other thing you can do, of course, is you can use vegetable oil with a brush. But if you really want to cook like a pro, take a pan and line it with parchment paper. For some things, like a layer cake, you'll just put a little square or a round in the bottom so that when you turn the cake out, it comes out seamlessly and makes no crumbs. For brownies, I like to line the pan and have an overhang like this. As you can see from the pan, I actually have two pieces. Just put that one in, put this one in, and if they aren't already folded, just use the tip of your finger to make sure it fits all the way down into the bottom of the pan. Then here's the magic of it. Later on, after the cake or the brownies are cooled, you just pick them right out. Now I can either put this onto a platter and frost them and cut them, or I can wrap them over the sides and then put some saran over top and pop these in the freezer for later. And look at that, hardly anything to clean, which to me is a great baking tip. Parchment is a great cooking tool because it helps to prevent your baked goods from sticking to the pan, it makes it easier to clean up, and it'll keep them from over browning. So if you've got a dark pan, using parchment will make sure that all of your light cakes turn out just right. No matter what kind of pan you have, you can make great cookies. The key is just knowing how your pan will perform. One of the first things you should think about is how heavy is your pan. If it makes a noise like that, you know it's a lightweight pan, and you're probably going to want to keep an eye on it because it'll bake quickly. If it's a heavier pan, you've got a little bit more insulation and a little bit more insurance. Now, the color of your pan, believe it or not, has a lot to do with the way your cookies turn out. Do you have a shiny pan, a matte pan, or a dark pan? Because believe it or not, it makes a big difference in how your cookies turn out. These cookies that were baked for the same amount of time on a bright pan don't get a lot of browning. On a matte pan that's not quite shiny, not quite dark, they get nice and golden. And then on the darker pan, look at this. They're a deep golden brown. Now, if you have a dark pan, but would like to have a cookie that comes out like it was cooked on a light pan, or vice versa, you can modify the way you bake your cookies and still get the same result. For instance, with a dark pan, you can line with parchment or a silicone baking sheet, and you'll have a cookie that turns out just like the ones from the light-colored pan. And if you have a light-colored pan, but want to have a darker brown cookie, just bake it for an extra 30 seconds or a minute, keeping a close eye, and you'll be able to have a more golden cookie. So, before you go into the kitchen to bake up some cookies and pour a glass of milk, give it a bit of thought, and next thing you know, you'll be baking cookies like a pro. Thanks for joining me. I hope you'll drop in for some more one-step tips.
For more recipe videos, visit lifemadedelicious.ca.